They call me the boy plunger, the great bear of Wall Street, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that one. Of the most expensive lessons I ever learned was this: tips will destroy you. Not because the people giving them are malicious, not because they're trying to hurt you, but because the moment you start trading on someone else's opinion instead of your own reading of the market, you've lost the only real edge you ever had. Let me tell you some stories. Stories that cost me fortunes to learn. Because if you're going to survive in this game, you need to understand something fundamental. In the end, you're alone with the tape. Nobody else can. Read it for you. Nobody else can think for you. And nobody else is going to pay your losses when you're wrong. The man called Turkey. When I first started trading at Fullerton's office in New York, there was an old man there. His name was
Partridge, but everyone called him Turkey behind his back because of the way he walked, chest puffed out,
chin on his breast, strutting around like he owned the place. Turkey was different from the other customers. He didn't volunteer advice. He didn't brag about his wins. He just listened, very attentively. When someone gave him a tip, he'd thank them politely. If it worked out, he'd thank them again. If it didn't, he never complained. You couldn't tell if he'd taken the tip or ignored it. The legend around the office was that the old man was rich, could swing a big line, but he wasn't generating much in commissions, at least not that anyone could see. Now, the customers at Fullerton's were like customers everywhere, always looking for someone to blame, always eager to be pushed into trades so they could say it wasn't their fault when things went wrong. They'd go to old Turkey and tell him what some friend of an insider had said about a stock. They wanted him to tell them what to do. But Turkey's answer was always the same, always. The customer would finish his tale of confusion and ask, "What do you think I ought to do?" And old Turkey would cock his head to one side, give them a fatherly smile, and say very impressively, "You. No, it's a bull market," time and again. "Well, this is a bull market, you know," like he was handing you a priceless secret wrapped in $1 million guarantee. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't get it. I didn't understand what he was trying to tell them. The day I understood. Elmer rushed over to where Turkey was standing, and without any apology to the man, Turkey was already. Talking to, blurted out, "Mr. Partridge, I have just sold my Climax motors. My people say the market is entitled to a reaction, and I'll be able to buy it back cheaper. So you'd better do likewise, that is, if you've still got yours." There was suspicion in his voice. The amateur tipster always thinks he owns you, body and soul, once he's given you a tip, even before he knows if it's going to work out. "Yes, Mr. Harwood," Turkey said gratefully. "I still have it, of course." "Well, now is the time to take your profit and get in again on the next dip," Elmer said, like he was doing the old man the greatest favor in the world. When he didn't see the gratitude he expected, Elmer pressed on, "I have just sold every share I owned." From his voice, you'd think it was 10,000 shares. But Mr. Partridge just shook his head regretfully and said, No, I can't do that." "What?" Elmer practically yelled. "I simply can't," said Mr. Partridge. He looked genuinely troubled. "Didn't I give you the tip to buy it?" Elmer demanded. "You did, Mr. Harwood, and I am very grateful to you. Indeed, I am, sir, but—" "Hold on, let me talk. Didn't that stock go up 7 points in 10 days, didn't it?" "It did, and I am much obliged to you, my dear boy. But I couldn't think of selling that stock." "You couldn't?" Elmer was starting to doubt himself now. It's a habit with tipsters. They're usually tip takers, too. "No, I couldn't." "Why not?" Elmer drew closer, waiting for some revelation. "Why, this is a bull market." The old fellow said it as though he'd given a long and detailed explanation. "That's all right," Elmer said, looking angry now. "I know this is a bull market as well as you do, but you'd better slip them that stock of yours and buy it back on the reaction. You might as well reduce the cost to yourself." "My dear boy," said old Partridge in great distress, My dear boy, if I sold that stock now, I'd lose my position. He says if he sells, he'll lose his job. What do you know about that? I beg your pardon, Mr. Harwood, Turkey cut in. I didn't say I'd lose my job. I said I'd lose my position. And when you're as old as I am and you've been through as many booms and panics as I have, you'll know that too. Lose your position is something nobody can afford, not even John D. Rockefeller. I hope the stock reacts and that you will be able to repurchase your line at a substantial concession, sir. But I myself can only trade in. Accordance with the experience of many years, I paid a high price for it, and I don't feel like throwing away a second tuition fee. But I am as much obliged to you as if I had the money in the bank. It's a bull market, you know. And he strutted away, leaving Elmer standing there, dazed. At the time, what old Turkey said didn't mean much to me. But later, as I began to think about my own failures, all those times I was right about the market but didn't make the money I should have made, I started to understand. The old man was wise. He knew his own human weaknesses. He knew from experience that he couldn't resist. The temptation to trade in and out, to take quick profits, to try to catch every wiggle. So he didn't put himself in a position where he'd have to resist that temptation. He just sat tight. And that's when I realized, when old Turkey kept telling people this is a bull market, he wasn't just making conversation. He was telling them that the big money isn't in the individual fluctuations. It's in the main movements. It's not in reading the tape for every little wiggle. It's in sizing up the entire market and its trend, and then sitting tight. It never was my thinking that made the big money for me. It always was my sitting. Got that? My sitting tight. The Saratoga disaster. Now let me tell you about the most expensive tip I ever took. The one that taught me once and for all never to. Let someone else's opinion override what I saw on the tape. It was the summer of 1906. I was up at Saratoga Springs, supposedly on vacation, but I kept an eye on the market. Everyone up there was interested in stocks. We talked about it constantly. Harding Brothers had a branch office in Saratoga, mostly for advertising to give the glad hand to customers. Who were vacationing there? I'd drop in and watch the tape with the rest of the crowd. I noticed Union Pacific starting to look interesting. The price was already high, around 160, but the stock was acting like it was being accumulated. Somebody with real money and real knowledge was buying it. Very clever accumulation. Then the manager came to me and said they'd gotten a message from New York asking if I was in the office. When they said yes, another message came through. Keep him there. Tell him Mr. Harding wants to speak to him. I said I'd wait, and I bought another 500 shares of Union Pacific. Pretty soon I was on the long-distance telephone with Ed Harding himself. "Hello, Ed," I said. "What the devil's the matter with you? Are you crazy?" he shot back. "Are you?" I replied. "And what are you doing?" "What do you mean?" "Buying all that stock."
"Why, isn't my margin all right?"
"It isn't a case of margin, but of being a plain sucker." "I don't get you. Why are you buying all that Union Pacific?" "It's going up," I said simply. "Going up? Hell. Don't you know that the insiders are feeding it out to you? You're just about the easiest markup. There, you'd have more fun losing it on the ponies. Don't let them kid you." "Nobody's kidding me," I told him. "I haven't talked to a soul about it." But he came back hard. "You can't expect a miracle to save you every time you plunge in that stock. Get out. While you've still got a chance. It's a crime to be long of that stock at this level when these high binders are shoveling it out by the ton." "The tape says they're buying it," I insisted. "Larry, I got heart disease when your orders began to come in. For the love of Mike, don't be a sucker. Get out. Right away. It's liable to bust wide open any minute. I've done my duty. Goodbye." And he hung up. Now, Ed Harding was a very clever man, unusually well-informed, a real friend, disinterested, But Ed Harding was my friend. He was smart. He was worried about me. And he'd taken the time to track me down and warn me. I don't know what happened to me. Maybe I thought my tape reading was wrong. Maybe I thought the insiders were manipulating the tape to tell a false story. Maybe I was just impressed that Ed cared enough to stop me from making what he was certain would be a colossal mistake. Whatever it was, I followed his advice. I sold out all my Union Pacific, and then, because if it was unwise to be long, it was equally unwise not to be short, I sold 4,000 shares short, most of it around 162. The next day, the directors of Union Pacific declared a 10% dividend on the stock. Nobody in Wall Street believed it at first. It seemed like the desperate move of cornered gamblers. All the newspapers attacked the directors. But while Wall Street hesitated, the market exploded. Union Pacific led the charge and made a new high record price on huge volume. Some room traders made fortunes in an hour. And me? The moment I heard about that dividend, I knew exactly what I'd done. I'd gotten what I deserved for, disregarding my own experience and listening to a tipster, even a well-meaning, intelligent tipster who was trying to help me. I'd set aside my own convictions for the suspicions of a friend. As soon as I saw Union Pacific making new high records, I said to myself, this is no stock for me to be short of. All I had in the world was tied up as margin in Harding's office, but I wasn't going to let that make me stubborn. What was plain was that I had read the tape accurately. I'd been an idiot to let Ed Harding shake my resolution. So I gave an order to cover my shorts immediately. The stock was around 165 when I sent in that order to buy. Back 4,000 shares at the market, I had a 3-point loss at that figure. Well, my brokers paid 172 and 174 for some of it before they were through. Ed Harding's kindly intentioned interference cost me $40,000. But here's the thing. It was a cheap lesson, a low price to pay for learning not to have the courage of my own convictions. I wasn't worried because the tape still said higher prices. So as soon as I covered my shorts, I decided to profit. By what the tape indicated, I bought 4,000 shares and held them until the next morning. Then I got out. It wasn't just about not taking tips. It was about gaining confidence in myself. It was about finally shaking off the old methods. That Saratoga experience was my last haphazard hit-or-miss operation. From then on, I began to think of basic conditions instead of individual stocks. I promoted myself to a higher grade in the hard school of speculation. Deacon White and the Art of Testing. Let me tell you one more story. This one's about Deacon S.V. White, one of the great operators in the old days. He was clever as they come and brave. A fine old man who did some wonderful things in his time. This happened back when sugar was one of the most active stocks in the market. H.O. Havemeyer was president of the company and in the height of his power. He and his following had all the resources, cash, and the cleverness to successfully manipulate their own stock. They say Havemeyer trimmed more small professional traders in sugar than any other insider in any other stock. One day, a man who knew Deacon White rushed into his office, all excited. "Deacon," he said, "you told me if I ever got any good information to come to you at once with it. And if you used it, you'd carry me for a few hundred shares." The deacon looked at him thoughtfully and said, "I don't know whether I ever told you exactly that or not, but I
am willing to pay for information that I can use."
"Well, I've got it for you." "Now, that's nice," said the deacon mildly. The man came closer so nobody else would hear. "H.O. Havemeyer is buying sugar." "Is he?" asked the deacon quite calmly. This annoyed the informant. "Yes, sir. Buying all he can get, Deacon." "My friend, are you sure?" "Deacon, I know it for a positive fact. The old inside gang are buying all they can lay their hands on. It's got something to do with the tariff, and there's going to be a killing in the common. It will cross the preferred. And that means a sure 30 points for a starter." "Do you really think so?" "Do I think so? No, I don't think so. I know so, absolutely. Why, Deacon, when H.O. Havemeyer and his friends buy sugar like they're doing now, they're never satisfied with anything less than 40 points net. I shouldn't be surprised to see the market get away from them any minute and shoot up before they've got there." That was all. but it was enough to irritate the tipster. "Yes, sir, and I call that very good information. Why, it's absolutely straight." "Is it?" "Yes, and it ought to be worth a whole lot. Are you going to use it?" "Oh, yes, I'm going to use it." "When?" asked the man suspiciously. "Right away." And the deacon called for his broker. "Frank, I wish you'd go over to the board and sell 10,000 sugar." "Sell?" The tipster's voice was full of suffering. "Why, yes," said the deacon mildly. "But I told you H.O. Havemeyer was buying it." "I know you did, my friend," said the deacon calmly. And to the broker, "Make haste, Frank." The broker rushed out, and the tipster turned red with fury. "I came in here with the best information I ever had. I brought it to you because I thought you were my friend, and square. I expected you to act on it." "I am acting on it," interrupted the deacon calmly. "But I told you H.O. and his gang were buying." "That's right, I heard you." "Buying, buying, I said buying," shrieked the tipster. "Yes, buying. That is what I understood you to say," the deacon assured him, looking at the tape. "But you are selling it." "Yes, 10,000 shares, selling it, of course." The deacon concentrated on the tape. A clerk came in with a report, the execution of his order. The deacon barely glanced at it. He'd already seen it on the tape. He turned to the clerk. "Tell him to sell another 10,000 sugar." "Deacon, I swear to you that they really are buying the stock." "Do not allow yourself to become excited, my friend." The deacon held up a hand, still watching the tape. The tipster said bitterly, "If I had known you were going to do the opposite of what I expected, I'd never have. Wasted your time or mine, but I'm not going to feel glad when you cover that stock at an awful loss. I'm sorry. For you, deacon, honest. If you'll excuse me, I'll go elsewhere and act on my own information." "I'm acting on it," the deacon said. "I think I know a little about the market, not as much perhaps as you and your friend H.O. Havemeyer, but still a little. What I am doing is what my experience tells me is the wise thing, to do with the information you brought me. After a man has been in Wall Street as long as I have, he is grateful. For anybody who feels sorry for him. Remain calm, my friend." The man just stared at him. The clerk came in again and handed the deacon another report. The deacon looked at it and said, "Now tell him to buy 30,000 sugar. 30,000. The clerk hurried away, and the tipster just grunted, completely confused. "My friend," the deacon explained kindly, "I did not doubt that you were telling me the truth as you saw it. But even if I had heard H.O. Havemeyer tell you himself, I still would have acted as I did, for there was only one way to find out if anybody was buying the stock in the way you said H.O. Havemeyer and his friends were. Buying it, and that was to do what I did." He paused, making sure the man was listening. "The first 10,000 shares went fairly easily. It was not quite conclusive, but the second 10,000 was, absorbed by a market that did not stop rising. The way the 20,000 shares were taken by somebody proved to me that somebody was indeed willing to take all the stock that was offered. It doesn't particularly matter at this point who that particular somebody may be. So I have covered my shorts and am long 10,000 shares, and I think that your information was good as far as it went." "And how far does it go?" asked the tipster. "You have 500 shares in this office at the average price of the 10,000 shares," said the deacon. "Good day, my friend. Be calm the next time." "Say, deacon," said the tipster, "won't you please sell mine when you sell yours? I don't know as much as I thought I did." What these stories mean. Now, what's the lesson in all of this? It's not that tips are always wrong. Sometimes they're right. Elmer Harwood's tip to Old Turkey was good. The tipster's information to Deacon White was accurate. Havemeyer was buying sugar. Deacon White understood this too. He didn't trust the tip, even a good tip, until he tested the market himself. He needed to see with his own eyes whether the buying pressure was real. So he sold into it, watched how the market absorbed his selling, and only then did he believe what he was being told. And I learned it the hard way, at a cost of $40,000. I learned that no matter how smart someone is, no matter how well-intentioned they are, no matter how much they know, if they're not reading the same tape I'm reading, at the same moment I'm reading it, their opinion is worthless to me. Because here's the truth. Every man must work out his own understanding of the market. You cannot borrow someone else's understanding. You cannot shortcut this process. When you take a tip, you're trading on someone else's conviction, not your own. And when the market moves against you, as it always will at some point, you have no foundation to stand on. You don't know if you should hold or fold. You don't know if the thesis has changed or if it's just a temporary setback. You're flying blind. But when you've done your own work, when you've read the tape yourself, when you've studied the conditions yourself, then you have conviction. You know why you're in the trade. You know what would make you wrong. You know what you're waiting for. That's the difference between speculation and gambling. Speculation is based on your own reading of probabilities. Gambling is based on hope. Hope that someone else knows something you don't. The real danger of tips. Let me tell you what the real danger of tips is. It's not that they'll cost you money, though they often will. The real danger is that they'll prevent you from developing your own judgment. Every time you take a tip instead of doing your own analysis, you rob yourself of an education. You rob yourself of the chance to learn what works and what doesn't. You rob yourself of the experience that would teach you to read the market. I see it all the time. Men who've been trading for years but who still don't know how to read the tape because they've spent those years chasing tips instead of studying the market. They're no further along than they were on day one because they've never forced themselves to think. And here's the cruel irony. The men giving tips often don't know what they're talking about. Even when they do, even when they're as smart and well-connected as Ed Harding was, they don't know your situation. They don't know your tolerance for risk. They don't know your timeline. They don't know what you can afford to lose. Here they are. First, I never ask anyone what they think about a stock or the market. If someone volunteers their opinion, I listen politely, but I don't act on it. Their opinion goes in one ear and out the other. Second, I never tell anyone to buy or sell a specific stock. I'll tell them I'm bullish or bearish on the market in general. I'll explain my reasoning if they ask, but I will not tell them what to do with their money. That's their responsibility, not mine. Third, when I'm in a trade, I don't discuss it with anyone until I'm out. The moment you start talking about your position, you open yourself up to opinions that will shake your conviction. Every man you talk to will have a different view, and before long, you'll be so confused you won't remember why you took the position in the first place. Fourth, I test everything myself. If someone tells me a stock is being accumulated, I don't take their word for it. I watch the tape. I see if the action confirms what they're saying. Like Deacon White, I test the market. And fifth, most important, I trust my own reading of the tape above everything else. If the tape says one thing, and everyone around me says another, I follow the tape. Every single time. Because the tape doesn't lie. It doesn't have an agenda. It doesn't care about making me feel good or looking smart. It just shows me what's happening. The path to independence. The path to becoming a successful speculator is the path to independence. You have to learn to think for yourself. You have to learn to trust your own judgment. You have to learn to stand alone. This is hard. It's lonely. When you're wrong, you have nobody to blame but yourself. When you're right, you have nobody to share the credit with. You're on your own. But that's exactly where you need to be. Because in the end, when you're sitting with a position and the market is moving against you, when your margin is getting tight and your broker is calling, when every nerve in your body is screaming at you to get out, in that moment, you won't have anyone to call. You won't have anyone to ask for advice. You'll be alone with your decision. And if that decision was based on someone else's tip, someone else's analysis, someone else's conviction, you'll fold. You'll get out. And you'll take your loss. But if that decision was based on your own work, your own analysis, your own reading of the tape, if you know in your bones why you're in that trade and what you're waiting for, then you can sit tight. You can wait. It's independence, it's confidence, it's the ability to stand alone. My final word on tips. I've been trading for over 40 years now. I've taken tips from friends, from insiders, from men who knew more than I did. And every single time, without exception, I would have been better off trusting my own judgment. Even when the tip was right, I was worse off for taking it, because I didn't learn anything. I didn't develop my judgment. I didn't strengthen my conviction. And on the occasions when the tip was wrong, and plenty of them were wrong, I lost money and confidence. At the same time, double jeopardy. So here's my advice to you. Deliver it as plainly as I know how to deliver it. Stop taking tips. Stop asking for opinions. Stop looking for someone else to tell you what to do. Learn to read the tape yourself, study conditions yourself, form your own judgments yourself, make your own mistakes yourself. Yes, it will cost you. Yes, you will lose money while you're learning. But those losses are tuition in the only school that matters, and the education you get will be worth infinitely more than any tip you could ever receive. Because once you've learned to think for yourself, once you've learned to read the market with your own eyes, once you've developed real conviction based on real understanding, then you'll have something nobody can take from you. You'll have independence. And in this game, independence is the only edge that matters. Trust yourself, trust the tape, and tell the tipsters to take their advice elsewhere. Your money, your decisions, your responsibility, that's how you survive in this game. That's how you win. And that's the lesson it took me $40,000 and a lifetime of experience to learn.